The interstellar medium between the ASF battle line and the Vera invasion fleet glows cherry red with plasma residue and shredded fighter debris, the roiling blue-white edge of the incoming coronal mass ejection seeping over the human dreadnoughts, sterns like a held breath. 12 minutes to CME impact. The bridge of the lead dreadnought ASF Indomitable glows with the dim red of damage alert strobes and the cool blue of tactical feeds. No screaming, no panic comms cutting through the steady hum of the ship's running systems. Commander Mara Voss, Fleet Co., leans over the central tactical console, her knuckles white where she grips the edge, no trace of strain in her voice. Sensor tally confirm Vera order of battle. Petty Officer Jack's sensor chief doesn't look up from his feed. 27 cruisers, 2 carrier battleships, 41 fighters launched in the last 90 seconds. They're reforming their line to punch through our center before the firestorm hits. They think we're buying time to bug out. Bug out. Voss's tone is sharp, no humor. Point defense batteries, free to engage any fighter that crosses the 4,000 click threshold. Do not waste munitions on long-range pot shots. Divert all non-essential power to forward shields and main battery capacitors. The comms channel crackles to life, Lieutenant Rourke's voice level, the quiet wail of damaged klaxons bleeding through the background static. Indomitable, Ghost 2 and 4 are dead in the water. Stabilizer assemblies are slag. We'll hold as fixed gun platforms on your port flank. Don't divert escorts to cover us. Ghost 1 copy, Voss says. Hold position. CME impact in 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Do not break formation for fighter bait. The Vera battle line closes, their plasma lances glowing bright enough to cast faint shadows across the human dreadnoughts' cracked, scorched hulls. The first volley slams into the ASF Forge, the fleet's third dreadnought, a 200-meter gash torn through its port armor, molten metal bleeding out into the void. The Forge doesn't falter, its port battery turret swiveling to track the Vera cruiser that fired, a trio of 120 railguns spitting tungsten slugs that punch through the cruiser's forward shield, blow its reactor core into an expanding fireball that lights up the surrounding Vera formation. The Vera fighter wave crests the debris field, 41 dart-shaped ships streaking for the human line. Ghost Squadron's 6 remaining operational fighters peel off, their own railguns stitching lines of fire across the Vera formation. 2 Vera fighters blow apart mid-flight, their debris peppering the hull of the ASF Resolve. Rourke's ship takes a plasma hit to its starboard wing, the stabilizer on that side seizing up, but he holds his heading, firing a sustained burst that takes out a third Vera fighter. Indomitable, Ghost 1 is smoking, Rourke says, his tone unchanged. Wings fused, can't turn, but weapons are operational. Moving to fixed forward position to cover the carrier's approach vector. Copy, Ghost 1. Voss glances at the CME sensor feed, the focused lance of plasma now 1.2 million kilometers out, the gravitic projectors on the fleet's rear holding it in a tight beam, shaped to carve a 3,000 click-wide path straight through the Vera battle line when it impacts. The Vera carrier battleships are charging their own main batteries, their targeting systems locked on the human dreadnoughts' command sections. 7 minutes to CME impact, Jack says, his voice tight for the first time. Vera cruisers are 2,800 clicks out, accelerating to 12,000 kps. They'll be in lance range in 3 minutes 30 seconds. On the comms, Rourke's voice cuts in again crisp. Ghost 3 is down, pilot ejected, pods drifting toward the Kira system. We're 5 ships left, covering the port and center flank, no brakes. The Vera launch a second wave of fighters, 30 more, streaking for the gaps in the human point defense. The Indomitable's flak cannons open up, filling the void with thousands of tungsten flechettes, picking off 12 of the new wave before the rest slip through, swarming toward the dreadnoughts' unshielded engine ports. Ghost Squadron dives into the swarm, their hulls scarred, their weapons running hot, trading fire with the Vera fighters at point-blank range. Voss watches the tactical feed, the Vera battle line inching closer, the CME's blue glow brightening on the rear sensors. 6 minutes to impact. The human line holds, no ship breaking formation, no comms channel filled with panic, just the steady hum of the dreadnought's engines, the crackle of comms, the distant thud of railgun fire hitting the Vera formation. Behind them, the besieged Kira homeworld hangs in the void, its blue oceans glinting faintly in the CME's glow, 90 minutes from glassing if the strike misses. Chapter 2, Episode 7, The Hyperspace Gambit. The tactical grid flickered as the Vera cruisers closed, their lance batteries warming to lethal brightness. The human dreadnought line remained immovable, a wall of steel and silence. Every officer aboard the Indomitable knew the numbers: 3 minutes until lance range, 6 until the coronal mass ejection slammed into the battlespace. The Kira homeworld's fate balanced on those minutes. Vector shift confirmed, Voss said, eyes locked on the feed. They're angling to cut our center. They want the command sections. His tone was flat, clinical, as though he were reading weather reports instead of imminent death. Jax's hands hovered over the fire control console, knuckles white. Main batteries charged, railguns at 98%. We can punch through their lead cruiser before they fire. Rourke's voice cut in, steady despite the chaos. Ghost Squadron is down to 4. We're holding the swarm, but they're pressing hard on Indomitable's engines. If they breach, we lose thrust vectoring. The bridge lights dimmed as the Dreadnoughts' capacitors bled power into the spinal railgun. A low vibration rolled through the hull, the sound of a weapon designed to crack planets. The crew didn't flinch. They had drilled for this moment, the calm of inevitability etched into their faces. "Target lock on Vera flagship," Voss ordered. "Fire on my mark." The tactical overlay showed the alien formation tightening, their arrogance palpable. The Vera had crushed dozens of civilizations with this maneuver, overwhelming lance fire at close range, followed by precision strikes on command decks. They expected panic. They expected retreat. They expected humans to break. Instead, the dreadnought line held formation, engines burning cold, weapons silent until the exact second of advantage. The void itself seemed to wait. 2 minutes, 20 seconds, Jax muttered. "They're almost in range." The comms crackled again, Ghost 4's pilot voice strained. "We've got breaches on the swarm. They're trying to cut through to Indomitable S aft, requesting suppression fire." "Negative," Voss replied instantly. "Hold them. Indomitable cannot divert, you know the stakes." There was no protest. Ghost 4 simply acknowledged, then dove into the swarm, her fighter vanishing in a blaze of tungsten fire. The Vera flagship's lance batteries flared, charging to full. The tactical grid painted them crimson. 1 minute, Jax said, his voice tight. "They'll fire first." Voss leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Not if we erase them before they finish charging. Mark fire." The Indomitable's spinal railgun discharged, a thunderous streak of tungsten accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The shot tore through the void, slamming into the Vera flagship's forward section. The alien shields flared, then collapsed under the kinetic force. The round punched through the command deck, vaporizing half the ship in a single strike. The flagship's lance batteries died before they could fire. "Direct hit," Jax confirmed, voice breaking into a rare grin. "Flagship neutralized." The Vera formation faltered, their arrogance shattered in an instant. Cruisers wavered, their tight assault line unraveling. The humans pressed the advantage. "Secondary batteries fire at will," Voss ordered. "Target their cruisers. Break their line." The dreadnoughts unleashed a storm of railgun fire, tungsten slugs ripping through alien hulls. One cruiser split apart, its engines detonating in a chain reaction. Another staggered, shields collapsing under relentless fire. The void filled with debris, glowing fragments scattering like sparks across the tactical grid. But the Vera were not broken yet. Their remaining cruisers surged forward, desperate to close the gap. Fighters swarmed harder, their weapons hammering at the dreadnoughts' engines. Ghost Squadron fought with brutal precision, but their numbers were dwindling. 4 minutes to CME impact, Jax reported. "If we're still in this vector, we'll take the full blast." Voss's eyes flicked to the rear sensors. The coronal mass ejection loomed, a wall of plasma and radiation racing toward them. If the human line broke now, the Kira world would be glassed in 90 minutes. If they held, the CME would wipe the Vera fleet from existence. "Hold formation," Voss said, voice cold. "We ride the storm." The comms filled with terse acknowledgments. No hesitation, no fear. The dreadnought crews knew what was coming, and they accepted it. The Vera cruisers fired their lances, beams of white-hot energy slicing through the void. One struck the dreadnought Resolute, carving across its port hull. Armor plates vaporized, compartments vented into space, but the ship held, its guns still firing, its crew still silent. "Resolute reports damage, but they're stable," Jax said. "They're not breaking." The human line answered with another volley, railguns hammering the Vera cruisers. One lance ship disintegrated under the barrage, its wreckage spinning into the void. Another staggered, its weapons flickering. 3 minutes, Jax said, CME approaching fast. The tactical grid showed the plasma wave swelling, its edge already distorting sensors. The void trembled under its approach. The Vera hesitated, their arrogance faltering as they realized the trap. If they stayed, they would be annihilated. If they fled, they would abandon the Kira siege. "They're wavering," Voss said. "Press them harder, make them choose." The dreadnoughts fired again, tungsten slugs ripping through alien hulls. Ghost Squadron tore into the fighters, their weapons blazing despite failing systems. The void became a storm of fire and debris, the human line unyielding. 2 minutes, Jax said. CME impact imminent. The Vera formation broke. Cruisers veered off, engines flaring as they tried to escape the plasma wave. Fighters scattered, abandoning their assault. The arrogance of Empire collapsed into raw survival. "They're running," Rourke said, voice grimly satisfied. "They know they're finished." Voss watched the tactical grid, the human line still holding, the Kira world still safe. "Maintain formation," he ordered. "We ride it out." The plasma wave loomed, a wall of fire swallowing the void. The dreadnoughts braced, their shields flaring, their hulls trembling. The Vera fleet fled into chaos, their arrogance shattered, their siege broken. The humans did not flinch. They held the line, calm and unyielding, as the storm consumed the void. Chapter 3, Shockwave Protocol. The plasma wave struck like a hammer against the shields. Hull plating groaned, the Dreadnought's superstructure vibrating as if the void itself wanted to tear them apart. The tactical grid flickered, half blinded by the storm's interference. Status, Voss demanded, voice clipped. Shields holding at 60%, Jax replied. We're bleeding power into the capacitors, but the line is intact. The bridge lights dimmed, then surged back. Crew worked in silence, hands steady, eyes locked on their stations. No panic, no wasted words. The humans had drilled for this exact moment, and now the training showed. Beyond the storm, the Vera fleet scattered in disarray. Their cruisers clawed for escape vectors, fighters tumbling into collisions as the plasma wave shredded their formations. The arrogance that had carried them into Kira space was gone, replaced by raw desperation. Rourke leaned forward, eyes narrowing. They're not regrouping, they're breaking apart. Empire discipline doesn't survive contact with annihilation. Good, Voss said, we exploit it. The Dreadnoughts adjusted formation, their massive frames cutting through the storm like anchors in a raging sea. Ghost Squadron reassembled, battered but alive, their fighters weaving between debris fields. Target priority, Jax asked. Command ships, Voss answered without hesitation. Cut the head off, let the rest drown. The tactical grid highlighted 3 Vera flagships still attempting to coordinate retreat. Their signals pulsed erratically, distorted by the plasma interference. The Dreadnoughts pivoted, railguns charging, tungsten slugs chambered. Fire, Voss ordered. The void lit up. Slugs tore through the storm, kinetic energy amplified by the plasma currents. The first flagship vanished in a burst of molten fragments, its hull ripped open like paper. The second staggered, shields collapsing under the barrage. The third tried to veer off, but Ghost Squadron intercepted, missiles slamming into its engines. Flagships neutralized, Jax confirmed. The rest are blind. The Kira world below remained untouched, its cities shielded, its skies clear of bombardment. For the first time in weeks, the alien defenders could breathe. On the human bridge, silence held for a moment. Then Rourke exhaled, a grim smile tugging at his mouth. They thought we'd break. They thought humans couldn't stand against Empire fleets. Now they know better. Voss didn't smile. His gaze stayed on the tactical grid, watching the remnants scatter. They'll regroup. Arrogance doesn't die in one battle, but they'll remember this. They'll remember that humans don't flinch. The storm began to fade, plasma currents dispersing into the void. Sensors cleared, tactical feeds stabilizing. The battlefield revealed itself, wreckage drifting, Vera ships burning, human dreadnoughts still in formation. Casualty reports, Voss asked. Minimal, Jax said. Ghost Squadron lost 2 birds, dreadnought shields strained but intact, no hull breaches. Rourke's voice hardened. That's unacceptable. 2 pilots dead. We'll honor them, but we'll also make sure the Vera pay for every loss. They already have, Voss said quietly. The comms crackled. Kira Command hailed, their voices trembling with disbelief. Human fleet, you held, you saved us. The siege is broken. Voss answered with calm precision. The battle isn't over. Secure your defenses, the Vera will return, and when they do, we'll be waiting. The Kira hesitated, then replied with solemn gratitude. We will be ready with you. The bridge crew exchanged glances. For the Kira, this was salvation. For the humans, it was only the beginning. Jax leaned back, eyes scanning the fading storm. CME dispersal complete, void stabilizing. We've got a window before reinforcements arrive. Then we use it, Voss said. Resupply, repair, rearm, every minute counts. Rourke's tone sharpened. And intelligence, we need to know why the Vera risked so much here. Kira isn't just a conquest target, something else is driving them. Voss nodded, agreed. Jax, coordinate with Ghost Squadron, pull every scrap of data from wreckage. I want answers before the next wave hits. The crew moved with precision, no wasted motion. The dreadnoughts shifted into recovery posture, drones deploying to salvage debris, fighters sweeping for survivors. Outside, the void was littered with shattered arrogance. Vera hulls drifted, their empire pride reduced to wreckage. The humans stood unbroken, their calm more terrifying than any weapon. For the Kira, it was deliverance. For the Vera, it was humiliation. For humanity, it was proof. The void could tremble, empires could falter, but the line would hold. And in the silence after the storm, Voss whispered the words that would echo across fleets and worlds. Shockwave protocol complete. The void belongs to us. Chapter 4. The wound in the world deep in the Kira's primary orbital nexus, a chamber that had not seen light in 3,000 years, cycled to life. The air tasted of stale ozone and older, forgotten things. Admiral Voss stood at the threshold, his boots crunching on crystalline dust that predated his species' first radio transmission. This is it, Kelthir said, her voice barely above a whisper. The wound in the world. Voss stepped inside. The chamber was a sphere, its walls covered in symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. At its center, suspended in a containment field of pure white light, floated a fragment no larger than his fist. It was black, not the black of absence, but the black of something that had consumed all possibility of light. The Vera didn't come for territory, Voss said. It wasn't a question. Kelthir shook her head. They came for that. It fell from the rift during the first Convergence War. We've kept it hidden ever since. Commander Rourke circled the containment field, his tactical mind already cataloging threats. What is it? A key or a lock? We were never certain which. Kelthir's mandibles clicked nervously. What we do know, it resonates with the void between realities. The Vera believe it can stabilize their hyperspace corridors permanently, give them uncontested control of every transit lane in the sector. Voss studied the fragment. It seemed to pulse not with light, but with the absence of it. And if they get it, they don't just win the war, Rourke said flatly. They own the board, forever. The Admiral's jaw tightened. Then we destroy it. We've tried. Kelthir gestured to the containment field. Kinetic impact, thermal lances, even a focused singularity pulse. Nothing leaves a mark. It's not matter as you understand it. Then we take it with us. The Kira commander's eyes widened. Admiral, if the Vera learn we've moved it, they already know we're here. Voss turned to face her fully. And they'll send everything they have to retrieve it. Your world can't hold against what's coming, but my fleet can vanish into the void and draw them away. You make yourselves a target. We already are. Voss's voice carried the weight of a man who had long accepted his own mortality. The difference is we're very good at being targets. Rourke's comm unit crackled. Commander, we've got movement. Long-range sensors picking up mass signatures. Multiple emergence points. How many? A pause. 30, maybe more. They're forming a blockade perimeter. Voss didn't flinch. They're hurting us. Want to make sure we can't run with their prize. We can't fight 30 dreadnoughts, Kelthir said. No. Voss's hand moved to the fragment's containment controls. But we don't have to fight them all. We just have to make them chase us. He keyed his fleet-wide channel. All ships, initiate Operation Hollow Point. We're pulling the trigger early. The channel erupted with acknowledgments. On the orbital displays, human dreadnoughts began shifting formation, their reactors spooling to emergency output. Admiral Jax's voice cut through. The Vera are broadcasting a demand. They're giving us one cycle to surrender the artifact or they'll glass the planet. Voss smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Tell them we accept. Kelthir stepped back. You can't be serious. I'm not surrendering. Voss tapped the containment field. The fragment rose, following his gesture. I'm buying time. When they see this leave atmosphere, they'll commit everything to intercept. That's when you hit them. Hit them with what? Our fleet is crippled. Your fleet is a distraction. Voss's eyes locked onto hers. While they're focused on me, you'll deploy every mining charge, every orbital defense platform, every asteroid tug you have. Create a debris field that'll take them days to clear, days we'll use to disappear. The Kira commander's resistance crumbled. You're sacrificing your fleet for our survival. I'm sacrificing my fleet for a chance. Voss turned to the fragment. Now help me load this onto my shuttle. We've got a war to misdirect. As they moved, Rourke fell in beside him. Sir, the odds are irrelevant. Voss's voice was steel. We didn't cross 1,000 light years to play safe odds. We came here to remind the galaxy why humanity survived the void when older, prouder empires fell. The fragment pulsed once, as if in agreement. Outside, the Vera fleet tightened its noose. Inside, a human admiral prepared to cut his own throat to save a world that had never known his name. And in the silent spaces between stars, something ancient and patient began to stir. Chapter 5, The Debris Gambit. The shuttle bay echoed with magnetic clamps engaging as the artifact fragment was secured. Voss watched his crew work with mechanical precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They'd learned that lesson in the Jovian Wars. Hesitation bled. Admiral Lieutenant Cora Jensen approached, datapad in hand, decrypted Vera command traffic. They're moving their supercarrier Sovereign's Talon into high anchor, directly in our extraction path. Voss didn't look up from the fragment. Translation, they want us to see it. Psychological warfare. Sir, that ship carries enough plasma cannons to melt this continent. Then we won't be on this continent. He finally turned. Status on the mining charges. Kira engineers are rigging every orbital platform within the asteroid belt. Commander Kelthir estimates 3 hours until detonation readiness. We don't have 3 hours. Voss checked his tactical implant. The Vera ultimatum expires in 90 minutes. After that, they glass the capital. Jensen's jaw tightened. We could run, take the fragment, vanish into hyperspace, and leave an entire species to burn. That's not why we came. Voss tapped his earpiece. Rourke, meet me in the forward cargo bay. Bring the prototype. The cargo bay was cold, sterile, lit by emergency strips. Rourke stood beside a metallic crate the size of a coffin. His face was unreadable. You're actually going to use it, Rourke said, unless you have a better idea. The Harbinger prototype isn't tested. It could tear a hole in spacetime that swallows the entire system. It could also buy us 90 seconds. Voss opened the crate. Inside, a cylindrical device hummed with contained energy. The Vera have never seen human technology. They don't know what we're capable of. They'll learn fast when we punch a hole in their formation. Voss lifted the device. It was heavier than it looked. That's the point. Fear is a weapon, Rourke, and right now, we're the unknown variable in their equation. The Vera fleet held position like a wall of polished obsidian. Admiral Voss watched from the Valkyrie's bridge as the alien ships adjusted formation. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Sovereign's Talon. Put it through." The viewscreen flickered to life. A Vera commander stared at him, scaled, elongated eyes like molten gold. Its voice was a low rumble. "Human, your time expires. Surrender the relic or witness extinction." Voss leaned forward. "I have a counteroffer." "There is no counteroffer. There is always a counteroffer." Voss held up the Harbinger device. "You see this? It's a quantum resonance disruptor. One activation and every ship within 10,000 kilometers experiences catastrophic drive failure. Your fleet becomes a graveyard." The Vera commander's eyes narrowed. "Bluff. Test me." Voss's voice was flat, deadly. "I've already lost a third of my fleet. I have nothing left to lose. You, however, have an empire to answer to." Silence stretched across the channel. "You would destroy your own ships," the commander said. "I would destroy everything if it means denying you this relic." Voss gestured to the fragment. "Humanity didn't survive the void by being reasonable. We survived by being worse than our enemies." The Vera commander's scales rippled, a sign of agitation. "You are insane." "No, I'm desperate." "There's a difference." The channel closed. Voss exhaled slowly. "Sir," Jensen said, "the Vera are adjusting formation. They're pulling back the Sovereign's Talon." "Good." "They believe the bluff, sir." "It's not a bluff." Voss turned to her. "No, it's not, but they don't know that." Kelthir's voice crackled through the comm. "Admiral, mining charges are deployed. Detonation sequence initiated. Time to ignition, 8 minutes, but the Vera have detected the activity. They're launching interceptors." Voss's tactical display lit up with red icons. "Rurk, status on the Harbinger. Charging, 60 seconds to full power. Make it 30. The bridge crew moved with practiced urgency. Voss watched the timer tick down. The Vera interceptors were closing fast. "Sir, if we detonate the Harbinger now, we lose our only leverage. If we don't, we lose the planet." Voss's hand hovered over the activation switch. "Sometimes the only winning move is to make the board irrelevant." The timer hit 0. Voss pressed the switch. The Harbinger released a pulse of energy that wasn't visible, wasn't audible, but was felt across the system. The Vera ships shuddered. Their formation broke. Lights flickered across their hulls. For 30 seconds, the entire Vera fleet went dark. Then the mining charges detonated. The debris field erupted like a shotgun blast. Asteroids, platforms, shattered metal, all hurtling toward the Vera formation. The alien ships scattered, their systems rebooting, their commanders screaming orders. In the chaos, the Valkyrie slipped into the debris field's shadow, the artifact fragment secured in its hold. Voss allowed himself a single breath. "Set course for the outer system. Prepare for hyperspace jump." "And the Kira?" Jensen asked. Voss looked at the view screen. The capital city glowed below, untouched. "They'll live to fight another day." The Valkyrie accelerated into the void, leaving a shattered fleet and a baffled empire behind. But in the silent spaces between stars, the ancient thing stirred again, its patience finally rewarded. It had found the fragment. Now it would find the humans who carried it. The inertial dampeners screamed as the Valkyrie tore itself out of hyperspace, the outer Uit cloud's ice dwarfs smearing across the forward viewport before settling into the dull gray of uncharted space. No Vera pursuit blips populated the tactical plot. Not yet. "Rearguard confirms the debris field intercept held," Jensen said, fingers flying across his comms panel, the tight beam encryption key still warm from the Kira transmission 10 minutes prior. 3 Vera corvettes broke through the minefield. Kira point defense batteries took them down before they could reach the atmosphere. 78% of the invasion fleet is dead in the water or drifting. Voss nodded, the tightness in his shoulders easing a fraction. The Kira would survive. That was the only win that mattered. The comms panel chirped before he could speak. Kira High Commander Kale's face filling the secondary display, his carapace still smudged with ash from the orbital bombardment. "Valkyrie, this is Kale. We recovered 3 partial fragment shards from the debris cloud. The rest are scattered across the inner system. We will hold them for your return, per our agreement." "No." Voss's voice was flat, no room for argument. "Destroy every shard you find. Do not touch them. If you see any surface glow blue, evacuate the sector immediately and send us the coordinates. Those shards are not assets, they're bait." Kale's mandibles clicked, a sign of Kira confusion, but he nodded. "Understood. We will purge the shards. Do not return unless you have to. We can hold the line." The transmission cut. Before Voss could order the course correction to the pre-planned fleet rendezvous 0.2 light-years out, Rurk's voice barked over the comms, sharp with alarm. "Captain, cargo hold 7 containment field is spiking. 17% above baseline. No external cause. Lead shielding is holding, but if it hits 40%, we get a hard radiation leak that cooks the foredeck in 90 seconds. Reroute all auxiliary power to that field," Voss ordered, already turning to the tactical plot. "Jensen, run a full sensor sweep of the local volume. No pings, no energy signatures, no." The tactical plot flickered. A single blip materialized zero point 0.1 light-years out, moving at 0.8 C. No transponder, no ion trail, no signature matching any catalogued Vera, Kira, or human vessel. Jensen swore under his breath. Bogey just appeared. No hyperspace wake, no re-entry flare. 1 second it wasn't there, the next it is. Before Voss could reply, every comms panel on the bridge burst to life with a low, thrumming hum that made his molars ache. It wasn't a language, it wasn't a signal. It was a pull, faint but unignorable, yanking at the base of his skull like a hook buried in soft tissue. "Captain," Rourke yelled, his voice cracking. "Containment field just jumped to 32%. The fragment is reacting to that bogey. Whatever that is out there, it's homing in on us." Voss's hand drifted to the activation switch for the emergency hyperspace beacon, the same switch he'd pressed to detonate the Harbinger. The board wasn't irrelevant anymore. The game had just changed, and the other player had just sat down at the table. "All hands, battle stations," he said, calm enough that the crew didn't hesitate, snapping to their stations even as the hull groaned under the strain of the rising containment field. "Jensen, send a tight beam to the main fleet, Omega-7 encryption. Tell them we have a non-aligned bogey tracking the artifact fragment. Tell them to bring the Dreadnoughts. We're not running this time." The blip on the tactical plot accelerated, no deceleration, no sign of slowing. The containment field spiked to 38%. Somewhere in the dark between stars, the ancient thing smiled. The hull groaned, a low, bone-rattling thrum that vibrated through the deck plates into the soles of Voss's boots as the sickly violet glow of the containment field bled through the bulkhead seams, tinting the bridge's emergency strips until the whole space looked submerged in stale wine. The hook buried in the base of his skull pulled tighter, sharp enough to make his molars ache, the taste of copper flooding his mouth so fast he almost spat. "Containment's at 41% and rising," Rourke yelled, not panicked, just sharp, his fingers flying across the containment station's haptic pad as readouts scrolled so fast they blurred. "Rate S1% every 12 seconds. The bogey's output is sinking direct to the fragment's resonance. See it here." He jabbed a finger at the spectral overlay, two jagged lines locking together, perfectly matched. "Whatever that is, it's not just tracking us, it's talking to the fragment." Jensen's fingers were flying across his comms console, the tight beam transmission to the main fleet humming on an encrypted loop only Omega-7 clearance could crack. "Bogey's holding at 0.92 C, no deceleration, no course correction. Weapons range in 6 minutes. No comms hails, no targeting lock, just that signal ping matching the fragment's signature. It's not hiding." A sharp grunt cut him off. Javi, the 19-year-old junior comms tech manning the auxiliary station, doubled over, his forehead slamming into his console as a trickle of blood ran down his nose from a burst eardrum. Voss was at his side in 2 steps, slapping a neural dampener patch to the kid's neck before he could crumple to the deck. "Look at me," Voss said, his voice low enough only Javi could hear, no room for fear in it. "Breathe through it, we don't fold to mind games." Javi blinked hard, wiped the blood from his upper lip with the back of his hand, and nodded, yanking himself back upright. "I can reroute 10% of auxiliary power to the containment emitters, Captain. Slow the rise by 90 seconds minimum. No impact on weapons or thrusters. Do it." Voss turned back to Jensen, who just pulled the tight beam reply from Fleet Command. The Admiral's voice was tight, stripped of all the usual bravado, the audio clipped so only the bridge crew could hear. "Voss, 3 Goliath-class dreadnoughts are vectoring your way, ETA 4 minutes. Long-range sensors confirm that bogey signature is non-catalogued. No Xylanth, no Vera, no Kira match. What the hell is it?" "Non-aligned, homing on the fragment, containment at 41% and rising," Voss replied, no wasted words. "Tell the dreadnoughts to arm point defense lances, hold fire until the bogey makes a move. If it closes to within 10,000 clicks of the fragment, I trigger the emergency beacon. We do not let it fall into their hands or anyone else's." The reply cut off before Voss could say more. The blip on the tactical plot, which had been streaking toward them at 0.92 C for 3 straight minutes, slowed. No deceleration burn, no ion trail flaring, just a sudden, smooth halt at 12,000 clicks out, dead in the void. The hook in Voss's skull eased a fraction of an inch, just enough for him to draw a full breath, before the containment field spiked to 47% in the same second. The fragments glow bright enough to cast sharp shadows across the bridge. "It's waiting," Rourke said, his voice tight. For something, Voss already knew what. He tapped the tactical plot, zooming out past the bogey, past the edge of the system's sensor range, to the 3 fat, arrogant blips of Xylanth heavy cruisers streaking in from the blockade line around the besieged Kalar homeworld. Their transponders were blaring full open, no stealth, no caution, the Xylanths so convinced of their own superiority they didn't even bother masking their approach. They picked up the bogey's signature, assumed it was a lost human prototype, and were moving to seize it before the ASF could claim the fragment to break the siege. The bogey shifted course, slow and deliberate, angling directly toward the Xylanth vanguard. The pull in Voss's skull sharpened again, sharp enough to make his eyes water, and he could almost feel the ancient thing's satisfaction, cold and unthinking, as it lured the arrogant aliens straight into the firing solutions of the 3 incoming dreadnoughts. Javi, push that auxiliary reroute to maximum, Voss ordered, his voice steady, no trace of the adrenaline coiling in his gut. Rurk, prep the beacon trigger, hold it until I give the word. Jensen, send a single tight beam pulse to the dreadnoughts, open fire on the Xylanth cruisers first, then the bogey. The bridge crew snapped to it, no hesitation, no wasted motion. Somewhere far off, the first of the Goliath's spinal lances charged, a high-pitched whine that barely registered over the hull's groan. The Xylanth cruisers were still 8,000 clicks out from the bogey, their captains too busy gloating over their prize to notice the 320-kilometer-long human dreadnought sliding into weapons rain behind them, their laves already locked. The game had changed, but Voss wasn't playing to survive anymore. He was playing to win. Word count 982, the bridge hummed with the strain of charging weapons, the air thick with the sharp bite of ozone and stale coffee, every crew member locked to their station without a wasted movement. The Goliath's spinal lance discharged before the Xylanth lead cruiser's sensors could pick up the 20-kilometer hull sliding into its blind spot aft. No flash, no warning, just the sudden catastrophic shearing of the cruiser's engineering spine. The hull split lengthwise, reactor core venting superheated plasma into the void, 1,200 Xylanth crew dead before their comms could spit out a confused query. The tactical display pinged once, then went dark where the lead cruiser's contact had been, no debris field, no escape pods, total annihilation. Target 1 eliminated, Jensen said, no inflection, his fingers already flying across his console to log the firing solution. Tight beam pulse confirmed, both sister dreadnoughts have firing solutions locked on remaining Xylanth capital assets. On the Xylanth comms net, the haughty pre-engagement chatter cut out mid-gloat. For 3 full seconds, the only sound was the static of their unencrypted frequency, then a shriek of panic in guttural Xylanth dialect, so distorted by fear it barely registered as speech. Their arrogance had cost them their early warning, their formation cohesion, their lives. There was no grand battle cry, no last stand, just panicked, uncoordinated maneuvering from crews that had never faced a threat they couldn't bully into submission. Javi, confirmed jam coverage holds, Voss said, his thumb brushing the edge of his command chair's armrest, the pressure in his skull spiking as the fragments pull yanked hard toward the scrambling Xylanth ships. He did the Xylanth fleet dissolved into chaos. 3 heavy cruisers attempted to form a defensive line, their plasma cannons cycling up with visible hesitation, crews fumbling reloads, targeting algorithms spitting error codes as the human dreadnoughts refused to register on their threat boards. The lead cruiser's destruction hadn't just killed 1,200 crew, it had shattered the psychological armor of an empire that had never known defeat. Jam coverage holding at 97%, Javi reported, his voice tight but steady. They're broadcasting blind, command frequencies are pure noise. One of their science vessels just tried to send a distress beacon on a civilian channel. Voss allowed himself a fraction of a smile. The Xylanth had built their entire tactical doctrine around superior sensor integration, each ship feeding real-time data to a fleet-wide network that painted the battlefield with perfect clarity. Without that network, they were blind children swinging sticks in the dark. "Admiral, we've got movement on the planetary surface," Lieutenant Chen called out from the sensor station. Xylanth ground forces are pulling back from the capital. Looks like they're trying to reach their orbital shuttles. "Let them," Voss said. "We'll deal with the survivors after we clear orbit." The tactical display updated as the 2 sister dreadnoughts, Hammer of Sol and Iron Will, executed their firing solutions. 14 Xylanth capital ships marked for destruction, their positions locked, their pathetic evasive maneuvers already calculated and countered before they'd begun. Hammer of Sol fired first. Her main spinal mount, a kinetic accelerator 3 kilometers long, punched a tungsten rod through a Xylanth battle cruiser at half the speed of light. The ship didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist, converted to a cloud of expanding plasma and vaporized alloy that washed over the neighboring vessels, scrambling what remained of their sensors. Iron Will followed 2 seconds later, her volley targeting 3 destroyers clustered around a command carrier. The first round missed, a targeting glitch from the jump transition, but the second and third found their marks, shearing through shields that might as well have been paper. The carrier's reactor went critical, the resulting detonation swallowing the destroyer's whole. 2 minutes until we're in optimal missile range, Jensen said. Recommend we hold fire until then. No sense wasting kinetics on a broken formation. Voss nodded. Agreed. Helm, bring us to bearing 310. I want a clean firing lane on their remaining command structure. The dreadnought shifted, her massive drive section pulsing with contained fury as maneuvering thrusters adjusted her heading. The deck vibrated beneath Voss's feet, a familiar sensation, almost comforting. He'd spent 30 years on ships that hummed and rattled and groaned under stress. This vessel, for all her size, moved with a predator's grace. "Admiral, I'm picking up something strange," Chen said, her brow furrowed. "Xylanth's signatures are shifting." "They're not running, show me." The tactical display zoomed in on the remaining Xylanth vessels, 8 ships still combat-capable, their icons flickering as they adjusted formation. But instead of scattering, they were clustering, drawing together in a tight sphere, their shields overlapping, their weapons oriented outward. "That's a defensive formation," Javi said. "They're going to try to weather our assault." "No," Voss said slowly, his eyes narrowing. "That's a sacrifice play. They're buying time. For what?" The answer came from the planet's surface. A new contact bloomed on the display, massive, powerful, rising from the capital's central complex. The Xylanth had built their ground command center directly over an underground shipyard, and now that shipyard was launching its final asset. "Admiral, I'm reading a vessel class we haven't seen before," Chen said, her voice climbing. "Length estimate 8 kilometers, power signature off the scale. It's a dreadnought, sir. They had a dreadnought hidden on the planet." Voss felt the fragment pulse in his skull, a warning throb that matched the rising tension in his gut. "Jensen, priority target." "That new contact, already locked, sir, but she's fast, faster than our firing solution predicted. She'll clear atmosphere in 40 seconds, then we don't give her 40 seconds. Fire everything." The dreadnought shuddered as her main battery opened up, a sustained barrage that would have gutted any conventional warship. But the Xylanth dreadnought twisted with impossible agility, her shields flaring as she absorbed hits that should have punched through. She was climbing, accelerating, her own weapons cycling up as she reached for orbit. "Javi, can we jam her?" "Negative. She's running independent systems. No external comms to disrupt." Voss gripped his armrest, the fragments pull screaming in his skull. The Xylanth dreadnought was going to clear the atmosphere. She was going to reach space. And if she joined the remaining fleet, the battle would become a slugging match, one the humans might not win. "Helm, all power to engines. I want intercept course, maximum velocity." "Sir, that'll leave us vulnerable to their capital ships." "I know, do it." The dreadnought surged forward, her reactors screaming as they pushed beyond safe tolerances. The deck tilted, gravity compensators straining to keep the crew from being pulped. Voss held on, his eyes fixed on the tactical display, watching the Xylanth dreadnought rise to meet them. The two behemoths closed. The Xylanth ship fired first, a plasma lance that raked across the human dreadnought's forward shields, draining them to 20%. Voss didn't flinch. "Jensen, firing solution now." "Locked, sir, but we'll need to hold course for another 8 seconds. "Then we hold." The Xylanth ship fired again, the shields collapsed. The plasma lance struck hull armor, superheating it to melting point. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded the console. Voss ignored them. 5 seconds. The Xylanth dreadnought began to turn, trying to bring her broadside to bear. But she was too slow, too massive, her crew still learning her handling characteristics. 3 seconds, Voss saw it then, a flicker of hesitation in the Xylanth commander's movements. A moment of doubt, the fragment in his skull pulsed and he understood. Fire, the main battery discharged. A single round, accelerated to relativistic speed, punched through the Xylanth dreadnought's bridge section. The ship didn't explode. She simply went dark, her drives cutting out, her weapons falling silent, dead in space. Voss let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Target eliminated. "Helm, bring us about. We've still got a fleet to finish." The deck steadied as the dreadnought turned, her damaged shields already cycling back online. Around her, the remaining Xylanth ships had stopped moving. Their crews stared at the human vessel that had just killed their last hope. On the Xylanth comms net, a single voice broke through the static, speaking in broken, halting human standard. "We surrender." Voss closed his eyes for a moment, the fragments pull receding to a dull ache. Then he opened them and gave the order. The surrender ping echoed through the dreadnought's comms, a ripple across the net as the Xylanth flagship's lights died. Voss leaned back in his command chair, the fragment in his skull throbbing once before settling into a low, steady hum. He inhaled, exhaled, and tapped the comm panel. "Helm, hold position." "Weapons, stand down. Damage control, report status." A chorus of voices filtered through the speakers, each clipped and precise. "Shields at 62%, regenerating. Port aft hull breach sealed. Structural integrity at 78. No casualties in critical stations." The chief engineer's tone was flat, but Voss heard the underlying relief. "Navigation, plot a vector to the besieged world. We need to be there before the Xylanth regroup." The navigator's fingers flew over the holo chart. "Course laid in, ETA 3 hours 20 minutes at current thrust. We'll need to divert power from non-essential systems to maintain cruising speed." Voss nodded. "Do it. Keep the fragment online. I want a continuous read on any Xylanth psychic signatures." He turned his gaze to the main viewport. The void outside was a smear of stars, the dead Xylanth dreadnought a dark husk drifting like a tombstone. Around it, the remaining Xylanth vessels hung motionless, their hulls scarred, their crews silent. The surrender had been abrupt, almost too clean. A soft chime announced an incoming transmission from the fleet flagship, the Aegis Vanguard. Admiral Karn's visage filled the screen, his jaw set, eyes flickering with the same fragment-induced acuity Voss felt. "Voss, you've done well," Karn said, voice devoid of flourish. "The Xylanth command net is fragmented. Their leadership is in disarray. We have a window to push through to the besieged world before they can reorganize." Voss kept his tone level. "We'll need to suppress any residual resistance. The Xylanth may attempt a suicide run or deploy hidden mines." Karn's lips tightened. "Intelligence suggests they've seeded the approach corridor with gravitic mines. We'll send a sweeper wing ahead. Your dreadnought will lead the main thrust, shielded by the Aegis's point defense grid. Keep your fragment active. It's the only thing that can detect the mines' resonance signatures before they trigger." Acknowledgement came from the comms officer. Sweeper wing launched, ETA 10 minutes. Voss turned to his tactical officer. "LT Rios, prepare a salvo of kinetic penetrators. If we hit a minefield, we need to punch through before the gravitic spikes can lock onto us." Rios's hands moved over the console, setting firing solutions. "Loaded, ready on your mark." The comms crackled again, this time from the Xylanth vessels. A thin, strained voice, clearly a junior officer, not the commander, spoke in halting human standard. We do not wish further bloodshed. Our ships are damaged. We request safe passage to withdraw." Voss studied the fragment's pulse, feeling a faint echo of alien intent ripple through it. The Xylanth were not merely frightened, they were calculating. Their arrogance had cracked, but the instinct to preserve their fleet remained. He replied, voice even. "You will disengage your drives and fall back to the outer rim. Any attempt to re-engage will be met with lethal force." "Understood." Pause, then the voice returned, weaker. "Understood, we will comply." The Xylanth ships began to turn, their drives sputtering as they pulled away from the dead dreadnought. The human fleet adjusted formation, closing the gap between the sweeper wing and the main line. The Aegis Vanguard slipped forward, its shields shimmering as it absorbed the first scattering of micro-meteoroids kicked up by the Xylanth retreat. Voss felt the fragment's hum rise slightly, a warning. He glanced at the tactical display, a cluster of gravitic signatures blossoming ahead, irregular like the heartbeat of a dying star. "Minefield detected at 27 clicks," he said, voice calm. "Rios, fire on my mark." He counted down silently, the fragment syncing his internal clock to the external threat. "Mark." Kinetic lances spat from the dreadnought's bow, streaking toward the minefield. Each impact flashed bright, the gravitic cores destabilizing and detonating in controlled bursts. The explosions rippled outward, clearing a corridor but leaving a lingering distortion field that made the sensors sputter. "Corridor clear," Rios reported, proceeding with caution. The dreadnought edged forward, its hull scraping the edge of the cleared zone. The fragment's pull intensified, a sharp sting behind Voss's eyes as it parsed the residual gravitic noise. He could sense the mine's remnants like a faint pressure on his skin, a reminder that the Xylanth had not surrendered without leaving teeth. The Aegis loomed beside them, its point defense lasers weaving a net of light that intercepted stray debris. The sweeper wing, a trio of frigates, darted ahead, their scanners pinging constantly for any hidden threats. Half an hour later, the flotilla breached the outer sensor perimeter of the besieged world, a blue-green marble shrouded in a thin veil of orbital debris. The planet's surface was a scarred battlefield, alien citadels smoldering, defense grids flickering, and the unmistakable silhouette of a massive Xylanth blockade fleet hanging in orbit, their ships bristling with weaponry. Voss's fragment flared, a sudden surge of data flooding his mind. He saw the blockade's formation, a tight phalanx of dreadnoughts, their shields overlapping, their weapon ports charging. Behind them, the planet's surface pulsed with energy, perhaps a reactor, perhaps a weapon. He keyed the comm. "Admiral Karn, we have visual on the Xylanth blockade. They're entrenched. Fragment indicates a high-yield generator on the planet's surface, likely powering their shields. If we take it down, their shield matrix collapses." Karn's image appeared, his expression unreadable. "We'll need a coordinated strike. Your dreadnought will deliver a kinetic barrage on the generator, while our carrier's launch fighter swarms to jam their communications. The Aegis will provide covering fire." Voss turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare a salvo of hyper-velocity slugs. Aim for the generator's coordinates, mark them on the tactical plot." The weapons officer acknowledged, his fingers dancing over the console. Slugs loaded, targeting solution ready in 30 seconds. Voss felt the fragment's resonance sharpen, aligning his perception with the battlefield's flow. He could almost hear the low thrum of the generator, a distant heartbeat beneath the planet's crust. "All units, stand by for fire order," he said, voice steady despite the pressure building behind his eyes. On my mark, we break their hold. The countdown ticked down in his mind, each second measured by the fragment's pulse. When it reached 0, he spoke. Fire. Hypervelocity slugs lanced from the Dreadnoughts' cannons, crossing the void in a blur of white light. They struck the generator's shielding array with thunderous impacts, each hit sending shockwaves that rippled through the planet's crust. Alarms flared on the Xylanth displays, their shield matrices flickered, then sputtered. Simultaneously, the carrier wings launched, a swarm of fighters darting toward the blockade, their electronic warfare suites flooding the Xylanth comms with noise. The Aegis opened fire, its railguns carving arcs of molten metal that sliced through the outer dreadnoughts' hulls. Voss watched the fragment's readout spike as the generator's core destabilized. A deep, resonant crack echoed through the vacuum, a sound more felt than heard as the planetary shield collapsed in a cascade of dissolving energy. The Xylanth blockade faltered. Their dreadnoughts, suddenly exposed, began to return fire, but their shots were wild, uncoordinated. The human fighters swarmed, disabling weapon mounts, disabling engines. Enemy shield integrity at 12% and falling, Rios reported. They're breaking formation. Voss allowed himself a brief, sharp exhale. The fragment's pull eased, a dull ache replacing the frenetic surge. He glanced at the planet below, fires still raging, cities scarred, but the orbital noose loosening. Admiral, the blockade is failing. Request permission to initiate ground support deployment. Karn's nod was curt. Deploy drop pods, secure the generator site, we'll hold the line above. Voss turned to his troop commander. Prepare the assault teams. We'll hit the generator's control chamber and shut it down for good. The troop commander's voice was crisp. Teams ready. Drop pods primed. As the first pod screamed toward the atmosphere, Voss felt the fragment's resonance settle into a steady, reassuring thrum, a reminder that the human mind, augmented by alien tech, could turn the tide against even the most arrogant of empires. He keyed the comm one last time, addressing the fleet. Hold the line, we finish this on the ground. The channel went silent, save for the soft hiss of life support and the distant, fading whine of Xylanth engines retreating into the dark. The battle was not yet won, but the initiative had shifted, firmly, irrevocably, into human hands. Drop Pod 7's hull screamed as it chewed through the Xylanth upper atmosphere, ash and superheated plasma streaking past the reinforced viewport. Voss's implant throbbed in time with the fragment's resonance, a steady counterpoint to the G-force crushing his chest into the crash webbing. Across from him, Sergeant Jax Rel ran a final check on his mag-fed carbine, the muzzle glowing faintly from pre-fire heating. Point defense is tracking us, Rel said, not looking up from his weapon. 3 batteries on the western ridge, range 12 clicks, pod armor can take 2 hits max. Voss keyed his comm, cutting through the static of the fleet channel. Drop flight, hold formation. We hit the landing zone in 90 seconds. Bridge confirmed suppression of ridge batteries. Karn's voice came back, flat and uninflected. Viper Wing 7 is on the ridge now. You've got a 45-second window before they reacquire. Move fast. The pod shuddered violently as retro thrusters fired, the deceleration so sharp Voss's vision grace-potted for 3 full seconds. The ramp slammed open into a wall of gray ash and acrid, chemical-smelling smoke. Tracers stitched across the landing zone before the first boot hit the cracked basalt, Xylanth automatic fire spitting from the ruins of a supply depot 200 meters out. Suppress that position, Rel barked, his team spilling out of the pod in a tight wedge, carbines raised. The crack of their fire was swallowed by the wind howling across the scorched plain, 2 Xylanth gunners dropping before the third ducked behind a pile of smoldered cargo crates. Voss pushed forward, the fragment's resonance sharpening his vision, letting him pick out the faint heat signatures of 4 more Xylanth troops hidden in the rubble 300 meters to the left. He raised his sidearm, squeezed twice, both shots catching the targets before they could raise their weapons. The Kelari homeworld sprawled ahead, its southern cities still belching black smoke into the pale blue sky, the orbital noose loosened but not yet gone. They moved fast, boots kicking up clouds of ash as they cut through the ruins of an outer city district. Halfway to the central spire, the generator's anchor point, a twisted black monolith rising 400 meters above the plain. A figure stumbled out of a collapsed storefront, Kelari, left arm mangled, breather mask cracked. He was still clutching a dented pulse rifle, his uniform stitched with the insignia of the Kelari Home Guard. Control chamber is 2 levels under the spire base, he rasped, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. He pressed a dented data chip into Voss's glove before he could respond. Xylanth rigged it to overload if you breach the outer door. 90 seconds. Bypass code is half on this chip, the other half is in the spire's old comms array, top floor. He slumped back against the broken wall, dead before Rel could pull a med kit from his pack. The spire's outer doors loomed ahead, sealed with Xylanth plasteel. Before Voss could interface with the panel, a side access tunnel blew outward, 3 Xylanth elite guards in powered armor spilling out, heavy rotary cannons spinning up. Rel took a slug to the shoulder pauldron, spinning hard into the ash, but he was back on his feet in a second, firing 2 controlled bursts that blew the chest plate off the lead guard. The rest of his team pinned the remaining 2, their carbine fire stitching across the armor until the guards dropped. Voss jacked the data chip into the door panel, the fragment's resonance syncing with the Xylanth tech, the panel lighting up with a stream of alien glyphs. A countdown popped up on his HUD, 60 seconds to overload, 30 seconds until the Xylanth reinforcements in the spire breached the foyer. The override sequence cycled, the glyphs shifting faster, and the doors hissed open just as the foyer behind them exploded, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. "Control chamber is clear," Voss said, keying his comm to the bridge. "We're going for the generator core. What's the orbital picture?" Rios' voice cut through, sharp and tight. "Admiral hyperspace signature detected, bearing 270. Xylanth reinforcement wing, 22 capital ships, ETA 18 minutes. Bombers will be in system in 7. We've got 3 gaps in the blockade line. Xylanth frigates are pouring through now. Port shield on the Resolve is at 28%. Karn's voice came back a second later, calm. No trace of the strain Voss knew was eating through the bridge crew. 4 Viper wings are vectored for the reinforcements. Remaining destroyers are pulling power to point defense to cover your LZ. Hold the line on the ground. We'll hold it above. Rel barked at his team to move, and they poured through the open doors into the spire's dark interior. The fragments thrum loud in Voss's ears, the countdown on his HUD ticking down. Somewhere above, the distant whine of Xylanth bomber engines cut through the wind, and Voss tightened his grip on his carbine, the first shots of the spire fight ringing out behind them as they descended into the dark. The spire's interior smelled like burnt ozone and wet alien polymer, cold metal grating biting through the soles of Voss's boots as the team poured through the blast doors. The countdown on his HUD glowed red, 53 seconds to overload, 27 until the Xylanth foyer breach reached the stairwell behind them. "Sentry patrol, 3 o'clock, Rel barked, and his fire team unloaded without hesitation. 3 Xylanth guards in matte gray armor crumpled before they could raise their plasma rifles. No wasted rounds, no chatter. Voss kept his eyes half on the fragment pressed to his chest, its thrum syncing with the cycling glyph scrolling across his HUD as he ran. The spire shook violently 10 seconds later, a deep, grating groan echoing from the upper levels. A crack split the bulkhead to his left, dust and tiny shards of alien alloy raining down on his shoulders. "Orbital impacts," he yelled over the comm, keying the channel to the bridge. "Bombers are early." Rios' voice cut through, sharp and ragged. "Admiral, Xylanth frigate broke the Viper screen at bearing 210. Locked on Resolve's port flank, port shield just collapsed, hull breach deck 12. Before Voss could respond, Karn's comm tone cut in, tight with controlled strain. "All destroyers dump point defense on that frigate. Viper wings 4 and 7 vector for its exhaust port. Hold the line." A dull explosion thumped through the comms 3 seconds later. Rios came back, voice cracking. "Frigate S gone. Shockwave took out 2 Viper wings. Bomber ETA revised to 3 minutes, not 7. Reinforcements are still 16 minutes out, but they're pushing hard." "Copy," Voss said, vaulting a pile of debris as the team hit the generator core antechamber. 8 Xylanth Praetorians in heavy crimson armor waited behind the archway, plasma rifles already raised. Rel yanked his injured fire team member Hale behind a support pillar, the kid clutching his bleeding bicep and returned fire. Plasma rounds sparked off the entry arch, singeing Voss's ear as he slid across the grated floor to the central override panel. The HUD countdown hit 18 seconds. He jammed the fragment into the access port, the glyphs blurring so fast they were unreadable. "Rel, I need 30 seconds, he yelled. "You've got 10 if I'm lucky," Rel barked, putting a round through the visor of a Praetorian leaning around the arch. Hale groaned, his stim running out, blood seeping through his fingers. The HUD hit 7 seconds. The Praetorians pushed forward, plasma fire chewing up the stone around the arch. Rel took a graze to the cheek, swearing loud and sharp but didn't break fire. Voss's fingers flew over the panel, the override sequence cycling through its final pass. The cavernous generator core's blue glow stuttered, then cut out entirely. The comms array mounted above the core fizzled, sparks raining down onto the grated floor. The Praetorians froze, their helmet comms dead, no orders coming through. Rel put 2 rounds into the lead guard's helmet before the others could recover, the rest scattering down side corridors, disorganized and directionless. Voss's HUD pinged immediately. The Xylanth reinforcement wing's hyperspace signature was destabilizing, no comms locked, their nav system spooling to jump. Rios' voice screamed over the comm so loud it distorted. "Admiral, the reinforcement wing is bugging out. Their comms are dead, they can't get targeting date on the planet." The bombers just turned around, they lost their guidance beacons. Karn's voice came next, quiet iron, no trace of the strain that had been bleeding through for the last hour. "Resolve's hull breach is contained." Port side point defense is offline, but we've got 12 capital ships holding the blockade line. The rest of the Xylanth frigates are being picked off by the Kaler surface rail batteries we held. Voskid is calm, rough with relief and adrenaline. Spire comms are fried. Generator core is offline. Xylanth reinforcements are jumping out. One wounded on the ground, no KIA. How's the fleet? Karn huffed a dry, unfamiliar sound. 2 destroyers lost. 18 Viper pilots MIA. Resolve's port shield is gone. Deck 12 is patched. But the blockade's broken. The Xylanth won't mount a second push for at least 3 standard days. We bought the Kaler enough time to get their planetary shield back online. Voss looked over at Rel, who was slinging Hale's good arm over his shoulder, blood smudged on his cheek from the plasma graze. Rel nodded at him, no words needed. Voss tapped the cool fragment at his chest, its thrum gone for good, and keyed the channel to all ground units. All teams, secure the Spire, medics to the LZ for wounded. Mission complete. Above them, the distant whine of Xylanth bomber engines faded as the last of the raiding craft jumped to hyperspace. Somewhere far below, the Kaler planetary defense batteries fired one last, celebratory salvo into the void.